we, the jury, find the defendant, Stephen A. Avery, guilty of first-degree intentional homicide.
Maybe you were one of the millions that watched it. It's the latest binge-worthy series to hit Netflix, and now NBC's Dateline is digging even deeper into the case behind Making a Murderer. The hour-long special airs tonight on 11 Alive and tells the story of Stephen Avery, a Wisconsin man who was convicted and later exonerated in a 1985 sexual assault case after spending nearly 2 decades behind bars. But then Avery's freedom was short-lived when he was arrested and then convicted in the murder of a local woman. The Avery trials rocked the small Wisconsin town, but the recent popularity of the Netflix series has now thrust the rural community into the national spotlight, tapping into the shifting public perceptions of law enforcement and the justice system. So joining me now to talk more about this is criminal defense attorney David Wolfe, who represented one of the defendants in the controversial Ray Lewis murder trial that got national attention and was televised nationally back in 2000. Thanks so much for being here to talk about
Good
this.
to see you.
All right, now we're going to do our very best not to give anything away if you haven't seen Making a Murderer just yet, but we want to give you a spoiler alert just in case. So, as you know, this case happened in a small Wisconsin town. Now it's taken a life of its own since this Netflix series. Why is everybody so interested? Why do people care about this so much?
Well, I think people are used to watching Law and Order and CSI on TV, and they think that in an hour you can find a crime, solve a crime, and have a trial about a crime.
All in about an hour.
Exactly, but now I think with this show they're starting to realize that people like them can be caught up in a system like this.
This series certainly fueling a conversation about judicial fairness in this man's particular case, but statistics, as you know, reflect systemic problems in the judicial system overall beyond this one case, particularly when it comes to prosecuting the poor, minorities, those who are undereducated. So is Making a Murderer fueling the conversation nationally about the larger scope of systemic unfairness in the judicial system?
Well, I think this series, in addition to things that we've been watching over the past several months throughout the country, have demonstrated that the indigent are outmatched by the millions of dollars that prosecutors' offices have.
But we've got a situation right now where people are petitioning to the White House for President Obama to exonerate this man in particular. I mean, that got, you know, thousands of signatures and people supporting and calling for his exoneration, but I don't see a big cry in the community at large, people asking for change in the system overall.
The more people that watch this, the more people are going to hold the state to their obligation to prove stuff beyond a reasonable doubt, and that's helping the defense bar bring substantial defenses to the trial.
So you
cases.
do think that it could make a difference, the louder the voices and the more voices, and as you anticipate, perhaps that will happen. One could argue, though, that no matter how flawed the system is, there still is typically a vigorous debate and a vigorous argument on both sides in the courtroom in any given trial. For a produced TV show about a case, that's not necessarily a given. That's not always the case that you're going to hear vigorously from both sides in the argument. So how much should people consider that when they're watching a show like Making a Murderer?
Well, you're definitely getting a slanted view from Mr. Avery's side, but one thing you have to remember is it's the little stuff. Like he was identified with 100% certainty when he was originally jailed, only to find out it wasn't him, and hopefully evidence will be scrutinized more during the trial of criminal cases.
But there certainly is a difference between a documentary and a piece of entertainment. Would you not agree?
Oh, absolutely. But what you have to do is look at it, see how and why it's being produced, but steal from it the little nuggets that help the system.
All right. Dateline NBC special, The State of Wisconsin versus Stephen Avery, airs tonight at 10 o'clock right here on 11 Alive. David Wolfe, I want to thank you very much for taking the time to talk to us. Appreciate you dropping by.
Thank you.
Coming up, how to